Good evening and buenas tardes to everyone who is watching today. I am here working with Alianza for Progress along with Unidos US and the Human Rights Campaign to bring to you guys an amazing conversation. And to start off, we're going to hear a little bit with Christy Marrero, who is the editor-in-chief of the Americano and Floricuas. So take it away, Christy.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here tonight, to be able to present this amazing panelists that we have put together for you tonight. I must start the conversation by giving you a friendly disclaimer that as a journalist, I'm here as a moderator, which means that my participation should not be understood or interpreted as an endorsement to any candidate in this presidential election. With that said, each panelist is going to have 3 to 4 minutes to answer the questions. This is a conversation. We are hoping that you guys take away great information when it comes to the state and what's going on with the LGBT community and Latinos in general. And also we hopefully will inspire you to do the right thing and exercise your right to vote in this election. So with that, I will also encourage everyone watching to also create your own watch party here on Facebook Live. That means that you can invite all of your friends on Facebook. This is a very important, crucial conversation for our community, so we really appreciate the shares. You can also comment, and also if you want to receive our digital gift basket, don't forget to leave your email on the comments section here on this live. So without further ado, I want to start presenting our panelists tonight. We're going to start with Melodia Gutierrez. If you can say hi to the camera so people know who you are. She's an associate campaign director at the Human Rights Campaign. She's born and raised in West Texas. She escaped Panhandle in search of adventures and travel. After working as a flight attendant and living all over the United States, Melodia earned a political science degree from the University of Utah, Hinckley Institute of Politics, with an emphasis in immigration politics and nonprofit advocacy. Melodia has over 10 years of experience as a campaign manager, political operative, and nonprofit advocate. Currently, Melodia serves as the associate regional campaign director with the Human Rights Campaign. She has also served as on the board of the Turtle Creek Chorale and the American Association of University Women. When Melodia isn't working hard for a cause, you can find her at the gym or curled up with a good book and her dogs. Thank you for being here tonight, Melodia. Moving on to Orson Aguilar. Please say hi to our audience. He's the executive director of Unidos US Action Fund. Orson was born and raised in the working class neighborhood of Boyle Heights in the east of Los Angeles. He has spent his entire career fighting for racial and economic justice. His memories of growing up in the barrio are what keeps him motivated to pursue racial equality. Today, he is the executive director of Unidos US Action Fund, an organization focused on building Latino political power to strengthen Latino communities and families. He now lives in Washington, D.C. with his wife and 3 children. Thank you so much, Orson, for being here tonight as well.
Thank you for having me.
Our next panelist is a very well-known member of the Alianza Progress Group. She is a retired NYPD sergeant, clinical social worker with over 35 years of combined professional experience in mental health. Nancy Rosado, if you can say hi to the audience as well. She, at this time, is employed as an outreach coordinator for the University of Central Florida's Restores program, which focuses on trauma treatment for military, first responders, the survivors of mass shootings, such as the Pulse nightclub, as well as the survivors of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. As a person with a strong commitment to community service, she has also served as both vice president and president of the Democratic Hispanic Caucus of Orange County and the vice president of Misión Boricua, a local not-for-profit dedicated to helping the growing Puerto Rican community within Orange County, and co-founder of both Somos Orlando's and Del Ambiente, both organizations that serve the LGBTQ and Latino communities. Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here tonight, Nancy.
Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. And we're moving forward to our last panelist, Ricardo Negron Almodóvar. You can also say hi. Ricardo is an inspiration to all of us. He is a Pulse nightclub survivor, a community activist, and he was born and raised in Puerto Rico, mi isla del encanto. Ricardo also now works with different nonprofit organizations in Florida, focusing on election protection and LGBTQ outreach. So as you all see, we have a packed room with people who are doing amazing things for our community. Now I'm going to move into talking about the three topics we're going to be covering tonight. We just want to keep this moving. We only have 30 minutes with you, so you don't want to hear from me too much. You want to hear from our panelists. We are going to start with a statement that it's heartbreaking, but it's also so important for us to discuss. The LGBTQ community feel unsafe in America today. A lot of them have expressed and feel that they're under attack, and that also includes Latinos in general, or Latinx. Melodia, I'm going to start with you. Could you share at least 3 instances where the LGBTQ community has been put at risk by the current administration, and how?
Yes, thank you, Christy. And it's a pleasure to be on this panel with everyone. You're right, the LGBTQ community does not feel safe, and we do feel under attack. And I wish there was only 3 things that we could name, but really the list is endless. And I do encourage for everyone to leave their email, because in the digital package, you will receive information on the timeline of hate and what we've experienced over the past 4 years. But just to name a few, let's start with the Equality Act. Despite support from almost every segment of the US population and a majority of the Republicans, President Trump continues to oppose the Equality Act. The Equality Act is actually passed through the House of Representatives and is sitting in the Senate for full passage. And many of our states and municipalities do not enjoy full protection from discrimination. So passing the Equality Act is key to our livelihoods and living our everyday lives. And it's a way to guarantee critical non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people, among other crucial rights. In addition, supporting employment discrimination against LGBTQ people, the Trump administration submitted amicus briefs to the US Supreme Court supporting discrimination against LGBTQ people. And then he has banned, this president, transgender people, service members from the military, against the expert advice of military leadership, medical authorities, budget analysts, 70% of Americans and armed forces of allied countries. Trump and Pence still ban transgender people from serving in the community. And that's just to name a few. And again, I encourage you to leave your email and sign up for the digital package to get additional information on the adverse impacts of this administration.
Wow, when you hear those numbers and those stats, they're just heartbreaking. And I think this is exactly what inspired this conversation tonight. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Facts matter, and now more than ever. And me being a journalist, I can attest to how important facts are. We're going to move on to Orson, and we want to talk a little bit more about the anti-Latinx violence that's also been spiking in the recent years, and why do we feel that our rights as Latinos are under attack? So as members of a community of color that we all are, we have experienced hostility, at least once in our lifetime. Do you think this president's anti-Latino rhetoric contributes to violence, and how does that translate into a direct attack to our rights? I think you have to unmute yourself, Orson.
Thank you for having the Unidos US Action Fund to be part of this panel. Really excited to be here. So I'm Guatemalteco, but when my dad first came here, I was born here, he came to Brooklyn, and he lived in Brooklyn, and he talks about the wonderful memories he has with Boricuas there. And he always says, if he wasn't already committed to my mom, it would have turned out different. So anyhow, just really excited to be with you all today. And, this is an issue where we all feel under attack, right? Just kind of starting your conversation, we feel under attack. Latinos feel under attack. Our LGBTQ community feels under attack. Women feel under attack. Black people feel under attack. And it's important that we come together to have these conversations. Clearly, we know that we have a white supremacist in the White House. And then when you have that, you have a lot of racist policies, right? Usually we would say exclusionary policies, but in this instance, really racist policies. And we think, when he talks about immigrants, he really is talking about brown and black people, right? Let's not fool us, right? President doesn't really care about, these legal definitions for them, for him. It's really about attacking everybody who's different and everybody who's brown and black. And we all know we're adding more flavor to the country. Yeah, the country is, as some folks say, browning, but we're making it better. But when we have a president who attacks Latinos, the LGBT community, awful things happen. We saw it in El Paso, in August, of 2019, where a gunman drove hundreds of miles just to target Mexican and Mexican Americans. And, those, didn't know who was legal, who was not. The gunman was aiming at brown people. We also see just policies that are devastating, right? You see at the border, mothers and children being separated, children being put in cages. If these immigrants were, blonde hair, blue eyed, we really doubt that, they'd be treating immigrants in this way. With the CARES Act, we see that, while immigrants and communities of color and Latinos continue to put food on the table, we've been excluded from a lot of the provisions, right? There's this penalty that if you're married to somebody who is foreign born, you weren't eligible for the CARES Act stimulus check, and neither were your US born children. So there's countless policies, the public charge rule that, now is, with COVID really impacting the Latino population disproportionately. Families are afraid to go seek medical support, food support, because of the public charge rule that says, this might go against you if you ever want to get legalized or be a US citizen. So we just see countless attacks, but, let's not let the president fool us. They always try to divide us. It's not really against immigrants. It's really around brown and black and other people, LGBT community. There's kind of the things that are making this country really great. And so I think for me, just being united with you all and having this conversation is what's going to matter. And when we have a conversation on the other side, post November 3rd, really looking forward to working with you to talk about accountability and to really, ensure that the new administration addresses things in a real equitable way. So thank you.
That is so right, Orson. And it's a great way to continue the conversation and move on to discussing the consequences of this kind of behavior on behalf of our leaders. So I wanna bring Ricardo, our amazing activist and Pulse nightclub survivor, to the conversation. Hate crimes in Florida are on the rise, and we've been reporting on this on the Americano for a while now. And unfortunately, we keep having to have this conversation because it wasn't until recently, after 10 deaths of trans women in Puerto Rico, that the FBI decided to call this by its name, a hate crime. I had the honor and also the heartbreaking opportunity of interviewing the mother of two of these trans women who were brutally killed in my island. And so it is kind of crazy to think that Pulse nightclub shooting happened 4 years ago, and yet we're still talking about the same thing. And it took all these years for the authorities to do the right thing, which is to call this for what it is. It's hate crime. Can you please, Ricardo, tell us a little bit about the human aspect of how can you possibly stay optimistic? I know you're doing great work, and I know you use this terrible and tragic situation that happened to you and to many others to actually inspire change. How do we stay optimistic? And also, what can we do to continue bringing light to the issue of the insecurity that a lot of our people, especially the LGBTQ community, feels every day, to be honest?
Yes, Christy, I'm might be having some tech issues, so if I freeze or something, it's just my internet's coming in and out. Hopefully that won't happen. Um, but the only way that I kind of like find to remain hopeful is by thinking, back in 2016, in the aftermath of one of the most horrible tragedies to ever impact the LGBTQ Latinx community, and particularly the LGBTQ Puerto Rican community, which is how I identify as, given that so many of the people that were taken from us that night were Puerto Rican. When this happened, many put aside their differences, even if it was for just a little bit of time, and rallied behind one common cause, which at that point was to support those of us who were affected by the shooting at Pulse. But hope can only get us so far, and we really got to do the work because things just don't change overnight. It's not like magic. As LGBTQ people, we cannot pretend that politics don't have an impact on us because our very existence is literally constantly used as a political ploy. Talking points to agitate and mobilize those who really want to see a world where LGBTQ plus individuals have no rights and where we are treated as less than. Because no matter what the great strides that there's been in LGBTQ plus equality throughout the years and throughout the years of fighting of so many, we are still treated less than, and this administration has been treating us less than. We're now facing potential attack on our right to marry. Our trans siblings are always on the receiving end of Trump's cruelty and his hurtful policies. And no matter how many of his family members he can send out to different rallies to talk about how they like the LGBTQ community, that's just not the truth. That's not what they've been doing for the past 4 years. That is not the policies that they have been implementing. So the violence to which our people can be subjected just for being who we are, for expressing ourselves as we are, for loving who we are. Let me tell you, if you really think that you can sit this one out and not use your voice to fight the hate that's fueled by this administration and its anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, you are sitting on a pedestal of privilege, and somehow you think that none of this impacts you, but it does. If you're an LGBTQ plus individual, this administration has their aim on us, and no matter how much they deny it in public, that's what they've been doing, dismantling absolutely the protections that we have, or trying to dismantle. So it's not all green, LGBTQ community. We have a lot of power. We have to organize. We have to strategize. We have to demonstrate that we're here, that we're not turning back. Just here in Florida, there's over 500,000 of us. That's not a small number. That's really a force to reckon with. No somos cuatro gatos. We can be a force like no other, right? We just have to look at common goals that improve our lives as a community and fight for those. And we have to make the right choices. And the right choices in 2 weeks is to completely clean out this administration that has been nothing but hateful towards us, and choose people that are going to be there to represent and support us.
Thank you so much for your words and for your work, Ricardo. It's always not only inspiring but great to be able to hear from someone who's been directly attacked by hate, right? And chose to to use your voice on a peaceful way to actually combat whatever attacks the community has been under. And so as a follow-up of that question, Melodia, I wanted to go back to you and discuss a little bit of, something that Ricardo tapped onto. So we're talking about, the LGBTQ, especially the trans community, being under attack for way too long. And now we confront another possible nomination for a Supreme Court judge who are not necessarily is not necessarily or doesn't necessarily have a track record of being too friendly with the LGBTQ community and rights. So can you discuss a little bit what does that mean? And also what could be the long-lasting effects of potentially having people sitting at, frankly, the most important seats we have in the government branch, right? And so what does that mean for the community to have someone nominated who's definitely not looking after the rights of the LGBTQ community?
Well, thank you, Christy. And Ricardo is on point. This administration has politicized us in a way, even more so than we were already, in a way that is not only unequal, but it's damaging. Just this year in 2020, we've seen 33 of our trans brothers, sisters, and non-gender conforming folks be murdered, which is terrible. It's awful to even say. And that is the most on record since we started counting this information in 2013. So that in itself shows you that our very identities are at stake. And moving into how it affects and impacts the court, Trump is already appointing judges at a dangerously alarming rate. With alarming anti-LGBTQ records on appointments at every level of the judicial system. We already have Gorsuch, we already have Kavanaugh, and then we have federal nominees, Kazmarek, Mateer, Bounds, Vitter, Menashe, and others. Now let's look at the future of SCOTUS with the recent suggested appointment of Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett has demonstrated outright hostility to our community. In her words and her rulings, she has called herself a protege of Antonin Scalia, who has been on record opposing LGBTQ marriage and equal rights. She's defended the Supreme Court's dissenters on the landmark marriage equality decision, Obergefell versus Hodges, questioning the role of the court in the decision-making process. She said that Title IX protections do not extend to transgender Americans, claiming it's a strain on the text to reach such an interpretation. She has misgendered transgender people, referring to transgender women as physiological males. While casting doubt on transgender rights, this is really difficult to talk about because we are under attack. What these judicial appointments mean is basically a reversal of our rights to love equally in society, from playing sports to research to our future. With our identified gender to marriage itself, everything we are working for is at stake. So we must be sure to vote for an administration that believes in equal rights so that we can continue the good work that has been carried forward by activists since the Stonewall riots and beyond.
Thank you for that. And yeah, it's definitely, it all comes down to what our interpretation of power and who do we think should be leading this country. And so we will know more after the next 2 weeks. Hopefully we won't have to wait too much to know the results. But I wanna talk about voting actually, and I wanna move on to Nancy. Nancy, I'm a Boricua as well. I am a former Floricua, like we call it in Americano. But Boricuas now, Puerto Ricans now account for 1/3 of the entire Latino electorate in Florida. That's something we should not take lightly because, like Ricardo was saying before, we are a big amount of people. It's a lot of people who are eligible to vote, and it's also a political power that we have, and sometimes we don't know how to own. So that means, just to put it in perspective, that Puerto Ricans for the first time are equally powerful in size as Cuban Americans in Florida. Can we talk about the importance of actually owning that power, that political power, and what are our best options for voting and for keeping our Floricua rights in this upcoming election?
Yes, so thank you for having me on board. I realize I'm the older statesman here, and usually get left out along the edges. But I'll bring you some history and some perspective in many ways. When we talk about Boricuas here in Florida, or anywhere for that matter, we have to understand that we are a people that we're humble. We're, for all our playfulness and for all our many attributes, we're also very humble, and we have not yet learned to wield the power of our numbers. Mm-hmm. In Puerto Rico, obviously, voting is a whole different ballgame. How you vote, whether you have early vote, how complicated is the form to get your early, whatever. It's our own. What has trapped us up many ways is our own shyness about becoming informed, our own reticence about going to vote and becoming educated on the issues. Because in Puerto Rico, when you think about it, what do? What are the chances that you know your mayor? Your town is tiny, everybody knows everybody. You come here and you are disengaged from these people, these strangers, these aliens that you do not have anything in common with, who are currently sitting in those seats. So we feel uninformed and uncomfortable voting. And for that reason, many times we don't. But here's the reality, like you said, we are sitting on a powder keg of power right now in our sheer numbers. And it's in waking people up to the mere fact that by our numbers, we can own this town, period. That's a very scary thought for the other groups involved. It's important that we focus on our electing people, polishing and preparing candidates who are Boricua or who are Latino. It's important that we look carefully at who we're polishing and who we're grooming for these positions. We have surpassed other groups, and we've been growing since about 1980 here in Florida. We have been growing in huge numbers. So it's really important that we understand what it is to vote by mail, to get our numbers out there. It's important for us to also understand that early voting is a key for us. No esperen hasta el último momento. Salgan ahora. It's in urging our people to get moving now, because the staying home and saying, I don't like the way things are right now, it doesn't fix anything. And I just want to go back to Ricardo's line of conversation for one moment. I'm probably, I definitely am the oldest person on this panel, but I want to talk one second about what we did not have back in the days of Stonewall. Much like Puerto Ricans came and did not have A, B, C, D, E, F. The LGBTQ community did not have either. All right. You went to a club because you wanted to socialize, you want to be amongst your own. And it's the same thing. We had social clubs for Puerto Ricans, depending on los hijos ausentes de Fajardo, los hijos ausentes de Mameye. We were missing our own, and that's how we informed each other, was through these clubs for the LGBTQ community, and they were social clubs for the Puerto Rican community. And we evolved from that. If you think back, we didn't even have licenses to have these clubs. So the cops would come and raid us all the time, whether you were gay and you're in the bars or you were in your social club with your Puerto Rican group. You did not have the right to, and you were constantly being arrested and your club being shut down and so on and so forth. But if you told me that the day would come back then that I could get married, if you told me the day would come when I did not have to be scared of being in a club, I would not have believed you. And yet here we are. And now it's being threatened. The same way Puerto Rico is constantly being threatened by a certain bully sitting in a certain very white house. We have to overcome this. We have to get away from this. We need to recognize that we do have the power here to affect over there. And I think we have not emphasized that enough, that it is us who are here who can vote to make the change back home. just like it is now for LGBTQ younger folks like Ricardo, who is like my wayward son. It's on yeah, sorry, honey. It's on him and his age group to move that needle forward, because it's time for us to kind of start sitting down and letting them build the power. Same thing with the Puerto Rican community. It is absolutely up to us to start letting go of the reins so that the younger folks can move in and just think of this energy, think of this different mentality and different way of looking at things, creating the change that we need to finish this cycle that we're living out right now. So yeah, right now it's urgent to go in and vote early and make our numbers known. When you think, I think the quote was like 53,000 voted yesterday.
That's amazing.
I cannot break down the number for you, but
that's encouraging. That's encouraging. So thank you so much, Nancy, for your wisdom. I don't think you're old. I think you're just super wise, and we need to learn more from people like you who've been doing the work on the ground for so many years. I'm very honored that you were able to share your knowledge with us. And we definitely think that the younger generations need to have the responsibility to be engaged and to actually go out and vote early. No lo dejen pa mañana. Like you said, I want to give you, we are over for 2 minutes, but I don't want to close this without giving you a chance to speak again, Orson. We have 1 more minute, so if you, Ricardo and Melodia, want to leave people with something inspiring, like Nancy just did, on why we need to vote, why we need to go out there, and why the thought of a different administration is something that we could look up to or look forward to.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, Christy, is, as we started, it's, we're all under attack, and the way we go on the offensive is by voting, right? And so the biggest act we can take these next few days, next 2 weeks, is vote, get your friends and family to vote. And that's when we go on the offensive. And when we go on the offensive, you know what we're going to bring? We're going to bring a lot of equity and love to make sure that the tragic events that we're talking about that have been mentioned don't happen again. And that we, the young people that were mentioned, the younger folks, create the world that they want to see, a more just world where, everybody can achieve their dreams. And so it starts by going on offense, because we definitely have been attacked. And that's by starting with a simple vote.
Thank you so much. Ricardo, do you want to have closing remarks for our audience?
Yeah. So if I may, there's a question that I saw in the comments. If Biden takes office, what immediate executive action would you like to see regarding this matter? And what I'm thinking is sweeping anti-discrimination legislation all across the board, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, so that we don't have to be afraid for the next administration that comes and thinks, I need to rally my base of haters. Let me use the gays, right, as a prop. So something that guarantees that we can feel equal and have that. So in order for us to get that, we need to flip it blue where it counts. So
thank you, Ricardo. And Melodia, I want to hear from you what you have to say.
Yes, to answer the question, we need the Equality Act. That would be the first thing that Biden needs to make happen on his first day in office. And as Orson said, we need to hold that administration accountable. But in addition to voting, I'm going to do another call to action. We don't just need you to vote. We need you to encourage your friends and family to vote. And then we need you to be an A++ student and volunteer. Just 1 hour of volunteering, texting, making calls, reaching out to people that you don't think will vote, but care about our community, get them to the polls. With just 1 hour of your time, even 1 hour a week, you can make all the difference we need to see in the world, and you can be the change that you want to see in this world. So please join us, please vote. You can reach out to any one of our organizations, and we'd be happy to bring you into our forces. So thank you, Christy.
Thank you so much. Nancy, you want to say something in Spanish for our audience who prefers Spanish?
Bien ligerito, tienen que votar. Y hasta cierto punto, si después de noviembre 3 estamos o súper contentos o estamos deprimidos, No podemos soltar las cosas y dejarlas como están. Envuélvanse en busque con quién, qué organización afiliarse, busque la forma de seguir creando el cambio que necesitamos. Porque sea el que sea que esté en el White House, tenemos que pelear por nuestros derechos.
Thank you so much. You guys are inspiring beyond words. And yeah, I posted something on Instagram just to close that said along the lines of like, you know, if I hear one more Latino tell me I don't vote because I'm not excited about either candidate, honestly, ask yourself, do you love your family? Do you care about your people? Do you care about your friends? Just vote. There's no excuse. So I promised that I wasn't going to do that. I promised that I wasn't going to do a call to action, but I couldn't help it. You guys are so inspiring that I can't wait to go vote early. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for the work you do, Ricardo, Orson, Melodia, and Nancy. And please follow all of these organizations that are doing the great work. Alianza for Progress, Human Rights Campaign, Unidos USA, and also you can find more information on voting and anything you need to learn about this election and moving forward on theamericanonews.com. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Gracias. Adiós.